Welcome to our podcast, where we discuss and meet with people, businesses, and trades that have motivated and inspired us along the way of creating our own business, River Road Brewing and Hops. I'm your host, Nikki Andrew, the original River Road Blonde, and this is Down River Road. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Down River Road. It has been a long time and I have to apologize for that because it's been kind of a chaotic summer and we're just kind of getting back into the swing of things. We were really lucky this summer at the brewery to welcome a number of bands, and I'm say a number lightly because there was a lot of them. But one of the bands that came and one of the more exciting events that we had was the Josh Geddis album release party. And Josh is with me today. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it a little bit. You were at a number of the concerts that we had this summer, which is awesome. Big music supporter, obviously. And we had talked a little bit back and forth about doing a podcast together.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because, you know, most people shy away from me when I'm like, hey, you guys want to do a podcast? Even Pete was like, not really. But you were keen. You were excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I stand in front of a room full of teenagers every single day. So you get really good about talking about nothing and pretending it's something.
The cameras don't scare you for sure. So this is going to be all about you today, which is a lot of fun. But first of all, we're going to kind of talk about, now we've had this beer on here before. This is Zesty Farmer.
Right on.
It is one of our more popular beers. And you had said to me right before we did this, you're like, nothing heavy, I got to do a run. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I was like, what's the lightest beer? And it was Zesty Farmer for sure. So let's crack these bad boys open. I love this beer because it's the perfect summer beer.
Have you had one explode in the crack yet on the show?
No, but let's not play that game, Josh. The team's like, please don't let that happen on the equipment. Let's not play that game.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. Yes, I do love it.
There we go.
So let's talk a little bit about how we met.
Okay.
Kind of going to go back, and it has to do with the beer as well.
Yeah.
So you are friends with a lot of the same friends that we are friends with, and you were coming to the brewery fairly regularly, I think.
Yeah.
Quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
Or quite a few years ago. We've only been open.
Yeah, kind of when things first started.
Started. And I think, was it last year or the year before that you came to me with Amplify?
We did the Amplify beer. That was last November was when we did that conference.
Yeah, so like a year ago.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So Amplify was the beer, and I looked everywhere for a label. I was like, we have to have a label somewhere. It was
I have an empty can still at home.
The coolest label we've ever had, and it was designed by Steve Daw, right? Which is also a member of your band, which is amazing. He does amazing work, obviously. Every time I see something of his, it always is really cool. But he designed the label, and you shipped it out for...
That went out to... We do... I'm on the board of directors for the Ontario Music Educators, which is we're the subject association that kind of oversees and goes to bat for and supports all of the music teachers in the province, which is amazing. That's a really interesting time to be in that board right now with
absolutely.
COVID. But I was co-chairing our annual conference, and normally we do a big, huge in-person conference, which is what this one was supposed to be, and it was going to be in London, Ontario. And I was co-chairing with fellow music teacher Isaac Moore, who used to teach just down the road at South Huron, and now he's a learning coach for the Avon Maitland School Board. And we were co-chairing this conference, so we wanted it to kind of feel kind of like us. So we asked Steve for, a punk rock label, and we're like, well, we like drinking beer. So wouldn't it be neat if we had a team of about 20 volunteers who were working on this conference with us. And traditionally you do a little gift for them. And we thought, this would be kind of a neat way to give something that's representative of us. And we had planned all give them in person and crack them all in a room at a big party at this conference, which didn't happen.
No.
So hence you guys got to mail them all out to everybody.
Yeah, which was fun actually, because I was in contact with a few of them and they were really excited about the whole idea, the concept.
There's nothing better than getting beer in the mail.
Yay, beer in the mail. That's super fun. So to kind of carry on to that, you're also, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
And you teach at St. Anne's High School.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously music.
Yeah.
And so one of the sayings that I absolutely hate, but I hear it all the time, is those who can, and those who can't teach. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but you destroy that saying because you are an incredible musician. And you teach the kids and have a lot of, and these kids have a lot of respect for you because of your abilities and your knowledge behind in the music industry. Can you kind of, how's it been? I'm going to go back a little bit. What inspired you to become a teacher?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I never really, I went to university and it was all right. And I took a year and I studied actually piano technology, which is how to tune pianos and work on pianos. And at the time, the University of Western had a certificate program in that. And I was like, I want to go hang out with these people and learn how to rip apart pianos and build pianos. So I did that for a year and I actually had my own piano tuning business for a short while. And I really liked it. I still have friends who work in the industry. And I was still fairly young. I was 21, I think 22 at the time. And I was looking at doing that. I was still taking some university courses. I didn't really click in with university. I was in and out, took some courses online. And I don't know, I guess my father-in-law, he was a teacher. I had a lot of teachers on both sides of my family. And it was just kind of something that was always on the back burner. And I finished university and was just pianos aren't that fun to talk to. And I was kind of looking at, and I was okay. I could have had a career as a piano technician. I had some really cool opportunities pop up early on. And it just kind of boiled down to, it just kind of wasn't quite for me. And it was, what do I like to do? Well, I like to, hang out, play music. I like to work with people. So let's go to teachers college. So I went to Duville Teachers College down in Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
And I spent kind of a year and a half there and met some really awesome, one of my best friends was my roommate, Chris. He lives in London now, and we roomed there and did, in New York State, they call it a master's of education. That's a little different than it is here. Their system's set up a little different, but I did that there. And I still wasn't dead set on teaching music. I spent 2 years teaching English in Stratford at the start of my career. And I loved it. I really loved
Diversity.
it. I had some amazing mentors. And I thought I was going to be an English teacher. And I was loving it. I would have been perfectly happy at this point in my life if that's where it stuck. But I was just on the short-term contracts and stuff like that. And those gigs kind of shored up. And I got a call one day from the principal at St. Anne's. And they were looking for somebody to come in, again, kind of temporary. And they only had 2 classes and a 12-student concert band. Really great kids, but just nothing really got, had really ever got rolling there. Really good players. They had a great teacher there before me. And I hummed and hawed about it. And I was like, well, I'll try it. And I never saw myself as a music teacher, which now kind of in retrospect, I think is kind of a little bit of what, I don't want to maybe good at the job. I don't even know if I'm that good at what I do, but I love hanging out and playing music and talking about music. And I love not knowing the answer to every question and just hanging out with teenagers every day. They're I don't know how I'm going to feel when my kids are teenagers. It might be a different ballgame.
Wait.
But other people's kids seem to be something that works for me. And really all it is I try to just bring my musical experiences in and try to give some wisdom to the students, and if they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. But like, I'll even do, if I have a gig coming up one night, I'll be like, does anybody know like how guitar pedals work? Because I have to check my pedal board, so I'll bring that in and change out some, let some
amazing.
of my guitar
Gives
players
them that
do that.
experience for
so
sure.
I think bringing in personal stuff like that, but at the end of the day, like I think maybe now like 6 or so graduates of my music program who are now music teachers.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
like how, like at the end of the day, these kids are obviously
Right.
inspired, and and as a teacher, that's a hard thing to do sometimes,
Yeah.
to inspire kids to carry on and keep doing what you want them or what they want to do.
Yeah.
Where are some of them now?
I've got
Because you've been teaching for like 14 years.
Yeah, so I've been
a long time.
yeah, I've got students everywhere. I've got band students who married band students,
Oh,
and
fun.
I've got Phil and Courtney. They got married this past summer. And everywhere, every field: medicine, agriculture, mechanics, and it's really neat. Because you don't have to go on into music. But my thing that I always try to tell the students that do go on into music is that really literally the only thing that matters is the student leaves your class with a love of music.
Yeah.
They don't have to be the best player.
Yeah.
They don't have to be able to explain every concept that you've shown them. All that matters is that you're teaching kids to love music, and they're taking your course. We're, music teachers have it pretty awesome. Like, we teach an elective, so every student in front of us has decided to be there, and that's a pretty big privilege, right? To have that opportunity to have students just be like, I want to hang out with this guy, and give him a job, like literally for 75 minutes a day. Like, if they don't take my course, I'm teaching other stuff.
I have the same thing at work.
Yeah.
People want to hang out with me and drink my beer, and that gives me a job. Yes.
So it is pretty neat. But I say to the students who go on into teaching music, and as they're getting classrooms of their own, I say, just remember literally the only thing that matters is that you model and show these students how to love music.
Absolutely.
And if you can do that, they'll like being there, and that's it.
And that's all that's really important.
That's all that's important.
You have to have that. You have to have that drive, right? And if you don't have that drive, it's not going to show. No. It's not going to pass on to the next generation. Yeah. Absolutely. So you're constantly evolving. I hear bits and pieces. I talk to a lot of people, not just Pete. It is Pete a lot, but it's not just Pete.
Yeah.
You're back in school.
Yeah. I like school kind of now. I don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I went back to Laurier at the start of the pandemic, and I met with they have just great people at that school in music, and they have a program there called Community Music. And when you're looking at kind of doing your master's midway through my teaching career, you're looking for what's going to help me grow as an educator, but also kind of as like a professional, like just in the practice of teaching. And for me, it was, community music is all about what we just talked about, like being open to music, the act of it functions kind of around like this idea of hospitality in music, right? Anybody from any walk of life could come in and take my music class. And that's how, all music should be, right?
Right.
Everybody, whether you're, this is the idea that some people are musical and some people are not. And, if you're tone deaf or if you don't have rhythm,
right?
Why is it that people feel so uncomfortable expressing themselves and doing music anyway, right? I'm not a great athlete by any means, but I'll go outside and throw a football with my kid.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Sometimes, and it won't be good.
No,
but I'll do it, and I don't feel bad about it. But sometimes, it doesn't go both ways with music. Sometimes there's a lot of you're expressing emotion. It's kind of a different bag of tricks. But I really found in this program, in meeting with some of the professors before kind of embarking on it, that, these are, and I've found over the last year and a half that, a lot of these people are thinking the same ways that I'm doing. Not all of them are in school, like teaching as educators. So it's really neat as me to grow, because I could have taken a master's of education, which would have been awesome too. I would have learned a ton, but it would have been in a field that I'm already in and kind of have that knowledge.
Right.
And here
there's something new.
There's a pushback, right? Like if I say something that makes sense in education, I'm going to get somebody putting up their hand and being like, but that's not how it is. Like in my world of like music therapy, I'm a music therapist,
Which is,
right?
yeah.
And it's not how it is in my world. I'm, a church music director or a music teacher here, right? And you get more diversity, or for me anyway, it's giving me some really diverse ideas, some out of the box thinking that now I can bring back to like the classroom.
Well, and it's different ways of teaching, right?
Right.
It's different ways of showing the kids also that that's not just, there's so many different callings, so many different portions of the music world.
Yeah. Well, it's about community, like the program functions on community. So like the big component of my research that I realized is that in rural music education, a lot of us come from bigger towns or bigger cities. Like I'm not from Huron County originally. I was born and raised in Strathroy. And, you get these teaching gigs and you get plunked in these schools and you run a music program the way that you've been taught to run a music program, whether it's, if you're going into a school that has a band program, I got to have a rocking band. We're going to go play competitions, which is great. Like I love band music. I love playing competitions. I'm a huge, concert band nerd as well. But you set these programs up, but you don't spend very much time looking at the community that you're in. So I don't know, it's kind of like you set the program up like it should be, but not taking into account where it is.
Doesn't necessarily work the same everywhere.
Right. So I've done a lot of work in that over the last year and a half in this program, especially during the pandemic where everybody's cut off. And I thought my bands being involved in the community were like doing things like playing in the Christmas parade, going out and doing public performances and stuff like that, which is, again, great. And it's like really what I like to do. Like one of my big things is to get students out and get them playing and get them in the public. Right. And I found out kind of through this program that it should go further than that. What are they going to know when they graduate about like music here, about Stuck Out Here, about, bands that like, one of the lead singers literally came out of the school. Am I talking about them? Am I teaching about, all of the music, the great music that comes from Huron County? So we really dug into that, and we did a crazy project with our music classes last year where they were interviewing local musicians, and we learned how to interview, and in doing so, we met like 25 musicians from the area. So it's like bringing them into the class and really connecting with them at a deeper level than just like them coming up to me and saying, great performance in the parade. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's been a really, really, really neat journey. And again, kind of something to get my mind geared back up about thinking in different ways. In a different, outside the box, like you said.
Let's talk a little bit about music in Huron County, because it's quite, it's, a lot of people don't realize what talent we have in this area, and it's pretty substantial. Like,
it's crazy.
It's pretty interesting. Like I grew up, I went to Central Huron Secondary School, and music was a big part of that, not necessarily the classroom, but in the hallways. I remember walking down the hallway, and I can't even remember who it was, but there'd be a group of guys mainly in the hallway strumming their guitars, singing a song, and that was just a normal part of a teenage childhood. Right? That was just how it was, and that was in Huron County. It wasn't. We weren't in the city. We were right smack dab in the middle. Right. So tell me a little bit about what you've experienced. Well,
for me, it's been neat because like as an outsider, you come in, we had the same thing in Strathroy. We had a crazy rock and roll scene and punk rock and roll, ska. I mean, I was in a ska band when I was in high school. We were big into, bands like the Planet Smashers and all that sort of stuff. And moving here, obviously every area is a little bit different, but when you're here, I remember we got married up here at St. Peter's Church in St. Joseph. And you had to have like a meeting with a priest before you get hitched, just to make sure that I don't know, he's doing like a background check on you or something like that. They do a little judging
and just make sure you're not going to kill each other. And,
right. Yes. So we're meeting with him, and he's like, "And you're brand new to Huron County?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're brand new to Huron County." He's like, "What do you do?" To Jess, and she was a music major too. She played trumpet.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool.
And he asked me what I do. I'm like, "Well, I'm a teacher as well." He goes, "What do you do for fun?" I'm like, "Well, I'm like really into music, and it's, new area." And he'll be like, "Yeah." He goes, "It'll take about 10 years. And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It's Huron County. It'll take you about 10 years to like really like put it all together and meet people and like integrate it." And he wasn't wrong.
He's not wrong. No.
But holy smokes, is it once you like get into like who's actually here, and like there are I'll steal Steve Dawes' phrase, there are monster musicians like just hanging around. He's one of them, hanging around in Huron County. I remember when he started playing with us, I brought him into the studio where I record with Matt Weston in Lucan, and Matt's in the recording booth, and Steve, the thing that I love about him is he's a tone nut. So he loves loves guitar tones, loves his pedal board, great player. And we were playing something, and he made his guitar, like I can't do half, like 3/4 of the stuff that he does on guitar. And Matt is in their control booth, and he kind of just does a and afterwards he's like, that guy gets some crazy sounds out of that thing. Right. I was like, yeah, he does. Right. And you find people here who are kind of those dark horses. And like Ivan Rachitsky, who goes by Ivan Rivers, he graduated before my time, but I taught his sister Scarlett, and she was like, oh, my brother's in a punk rock band. And I checked them out, and I'm like, these guys are really good. It was, stuck out here, and I've kind of been into them ever since. But then like, I don't even really know how it happened, but like, I've backed up Ivan and he's backed up me on stuff. Yeah. So it's just like a kind of a trickle down effect of, you're here long enough and you meet people, and even people that you don't play with, people will, you just bump into these people and you're like, wow, like you are like just a monster player, like, working, for a phone company.
Yeah,
or,
and that's the strange thing is it's not being recognized enough in this area, unfortunately. But fortunately at the same time, because maybe this isn't what these people want to do, but they have all this talent. Yeah, and they're doing such an amazing job of just getting it out in the area and making this area well known for that kind of genre.
Yeah, and not even like singers, like there are all around. I sold I was on Facebook buy and sell. This was only like 6 years ago, and I was selling a big clunky old guitar amp, huge Fender twin guitar amp that I was just too lazy to kill. I carried it to a gig and like almost broke my back, and I'm like, this thing's going. So I posted it on Facebook buy and sell, and this guy named Al replies to it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll sell you my amp. He's like, can you drive it up? I'm like, perfect. I can drop it off. He lived just north of Goderich in kind of one of those little communities that are closer to the lake. Yep. And I pull up, and small houses, and there's just this lap steel guitar, not lap steel, pedal steel guitar, just wailing and just blowing the walls off of this house. I'm like, this is guy like trying to put on a show for me, like as I'm walking up to, with this big amp. And I get in there, and he stops, and he comes to the door. The nicest guy you'd ever meet. Looks at the amp, goes and gets like a Telecaster from the 60s. And I'm like, who's this guy? And like, why does he have so many guitars? And he plugs it in, plays for like 30 seconds.
And you're like,
and I was like, oh, okay, he's really can play. He's like, perfect. Sounds like it should. I'll take it. And he goes, do you want to see a couple cool guitars? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So he leaves and goes into the other room, and I'm looking at his walls, and it's all Stompin' Tom photos. Yep. And then I'm like, he's with Stompin' Tom. And he comes back in. I'm like, were you in Stompin' Tom Connor's band? He's like, yeah, I was for a little bit, off and on. And his name's Al Windmeyer. And like, I went to like a gig we had our jazz band playing in Kingsbridge that day. And I went to the band, and like everybody knows Stompin' Tom. Yeah, like, you would not believe, like even the kids know like 100%. Like, you guys would not believe whose house I was just at. I was like 10 minutes late for like a school gig. There were other teachers there to watch the kids. But they're like, whose house were you at? I'm like, one of Stompin' Tom's old bandmates' house.
Which is crazy.
They're like, what? Where does he live? I'm like, 10 minutes that way.
Which is nuts.
Which is like, it's just crazy. And when, things like that happen, I've had stuff like that happen up here to me like 5 or 6 times, where you're just like blown away by either somebody's playing or like a connection like that.
Yeah, that's happened to me a lot this summer. Obviously, it's been a bit of a lot of really neat people, really interesting stories, really cool experiences, and just sitting there and listening to what they have to say.
And that's the biggest thing. Like that's all I wanted to do when I was at
just sit there
house.
And
like, tell me things. Yeah, like tell me stories. Know it all. Tell me your whole life. Yeah, exactly. Hold on, I got to go my recorder. Yeah. So back to school a little bit. You're teaching still, obviously, and you taught all through COVID. Yeah.
How's that?
Oh, I always preface it with I'm lucky, very, very lucky to be working during COVID. I have a lot of friends who aren't teachers, and you feel it when you're going to work every day. And there's people who have
not.
kids who are not, right?
Yeah.
So that's the preface, but it was super weird. Especially when we went online, I sent ukuleles home with students, and they're trying to play for you online, and you're like, if I could just I could fix the issue with your playing in
you can
5 seconds if we were in person, but you just can't, right?
Yeah.
So it became more of a game for me of wellness for the students, because again, it's an elective, and students are pretty if you have not to say that music isn't a tough course, but if you're taking a semester and you're grade 12 and you've got chem, bio, physics, all of those really I don't know, for me, maybe not for everybody, but really dense packed subjects. A lot of the times you're taking music for, your emotional health.
Yes,
so it's, you
absolutely.
you don't want to bog these students down anymore with I can't hear you through the webcam. Could you reposition and just make it a stressful thing? So a lot of mine was focused on just making it as good of an experience as I could for the kids.
Possible,
because these students had taken my courses in grade 9 and grade 10, and they were geared up to go on big music trips, playing big music festivals,
horrible.
and they didn't get to do any of it.
Yeah.
So you're still trying to again get back to the how can I teach them to love music? It hits some curriculum while I'm doing that, but be online. And now that we're back, I have my instrumental class in the back parking lot, which I never thought would be something even
sketchy.
Something. Yeah. So we have a blocked off spot in the back parking lot. And I remember on the first day that we set up to go out there, it's a 9 and 10 class. I'm not sure how these students are going to do. And they are doing awesome. They're so the whole school. I remember the first couple of days that we were back, just now that students know what it could be if things go south again. I think that there's a newfound appreciation for being just able to go and hang out with your friends, listen to teachers talk at you for a while.
Our kids are keen to go to school now, which is not something that they were always excited to go to school, but the fact that they've missed all of those opportunities, and not opportunities, but they've missed out on certain things that are kind of monumental through your teenage life, especially for teenagers. And now that they're back, they're this is amazing. It's every time they walk into a school, which is the way it really should be. And
absolutely.
It's taught them a new appreciation.
And I think, I often go to bat for, teenagers, in public when I see stuff online about teenagers, blah, 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 blah. But they are tougher than most people think. Yeah. Especially when they're functioning as a band or a team or a club, or even a body of students who are just into music at your school. And you really, I saw that a lot through the pandemic. None of my students were complaining to me about, everybody kind of was under the assumption that, yes, this sucks, right? But we're just going to do what we can. And then, now that they're back, things aren't quite back to normal, but we opened your cafeteria,
which is amazing.
And that was whoa. And then, you can go to Tim Hortons, which is right across the road for lunch. And that, so as they see little things come back, they get that freedom back. And, I'm glad it didn't happen to me now, or happened to me when I was in high school, because I couldn't even imagine.
And that's the hardest part, I think, is there's nothing to base it on.
No,
you've got no history of
now this happened to me. You can't say that.
Yeah,
to them.
No, you can't. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
We tried to explain that to my 8-year-old Nolan. We're your generation is going to be you're going to say that you lived through pandemic. Yeah. Right. And not a lot of people can say that. Right.
Yeah. Well, nobody.
Nobody. Yeah. Nobody now.
Now we all can.
Now, but but prior to that, right?
Prior to that, it was
a little while ago.
What, the Spanish flu, and that was that was the last.
Yeah. Right.
Big,
so it's
so it's
good grandfather talk when they're old, right?
When I was young,
I didn't get to go to school for a year and a half, and the grandkids gonna be that sounds awesome. And
yeah.
no,
it was horrible. Yeah. It was horrible. So while you were experiencing the whole COVID situation, though, didn't your students compose?
Yeah, we did.
Like remarkable.
Which was, I guess, one of the things that it was like, what can we do? So we worked with Bill Thomas from York. And what we did was we put together, we commissioned him to write a piece. So he came in and met with us, and we kind of talked about what the pandemic meant to musicians. And these are all students working on this who weren't going to see the day that they could play this piece in their concert bands. So we teamed up with students at St. Anne's and St. Mike's in Stratford, both high schools in the board, and we had a Zoom meeting, and we just collaborated on what this piece would sound like, and he wrote it, and it will be at some day when we can combine the bands together, which is not going to be soon.
No.
It'll be kind of the first big combined band piece that we do. So it's called After the Silence.
Right.
And the idea is that it's after the silence. We're going to be able to play some sounds, but the piece is broken up into 3 parts. The first part we try to sound like pre-COVID. Second part's very blank and sparse, and even has this real cool thing in the middle of the piece where the band's glitchy. Like it's like like to simulate like a glitchy Zoom call. First doing that, and then afterwards it's the after when everything goes kind of back to normal. So I'm super pumped to play it. I don't know when that'll be, but
it's even the fact that those kids got to participate.
They got to do that. Well, because
what are the chances of them having that opportunity?
Right. It's if we can't make music plain, how can we make music?
Yeah.
Right. So we can still make something and put something out there, and you can buy that, like other bands from it. It's available internationally now. It's published,
which is great.
So bands down, it's funny. Usually when you commission a piece of music, you get the rights to play it first.
Yeah.
And there are
not so much.
Yeah, but because there are other areas that are back to playing, right, in the States and in other provinces and stuff like that. And they asked, is it okay if we push this out, ahead of time? And I said sure, because I think it's something that a lot of students could benefit from.
I think it's remarkable, and like I said, even if they don't get to play it, they can look back and say, I was a part of that.
I got to build that piece whenever it does get played.
Which, when you're young, like you're a teenager, all those kind of things combined gives you a little bit of confidence.
Oh, right? For sure. That little sense of confidence. And stuff that you can be proud, to have been a part of, right?
Yeah. So your students are being inspired by you, obviously. You being a musician, what has inspired you, or who has inspired you through it? I know, sorry. Yeah. boom. Take it. Answer the questions.
Oh man. I like so many things. Like, I don't know, I remember I grew up in Strathroy, and my neighbor 2 doors down, his name was Derek Heinbuck. And I would go over to his house. He was like the dude whose parents let him listen to any music that he wanted, and like much music was always on.
I had those parents.
Yeah. Mine not so much. Great parents, and they probably knew that I was going over and like listening and watching. They just weren't cool with it in their house, which is an interesting parenting strategy that I might also pursue one day.
Yeah.
But I go over to Derek's house, and I remember like watching all of these bands, this Nirvana, Oasis, which became like my favorite. I was a huge Oasis band, Oasis fan. But all these bands, Weezer, when they were just kind of like, they were all the good bands, right? Of the 90s were just coming out as I was finishing elementary school, and he was in grade 9.
Yeah.
So
he had some pretty cool.
And he even still to this day, I don't talk to him at all anymore, but we have some mutual friends, and we're like, yeah, this guy like still like turns it up to 10 and just blasts his music. So I go over and listen to music, and I remember he did a mixed cassette tape for me.
For those of you who don't know, the kids, cassette tapes are what we listen to music on.
Yeah. Yes. So he made a mix for me for an up north road trip with my parents. I had I think my sister had a Sony Walkman, and I had a Sanyo. So, but it wasn't like as high class as the Sony, but it had like all the bands on it. Like the Big Me from the Foo Fighters was on at that time, had Pennywise, had No Effects songs, had the old school like Offspring, and it had all of those songs on it.
It's that old school.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, for me, I guess. Yeah. Sorry, I just dated you by about 10
Thank
years.
you.
There. But we, all of those like kind of big 90s bands were on this tape, and then you go to grade 9 and you're like, yeah, I know all these cool bands, and I was just like a nerdy violin lesson kid from Stroudsburg, violin and saxophone. I was playing music all the time. Kids were out playing road hockey. I was playing music and loving it. But it gave me kind of a little bit of a gateway. It's a gateway cassette into kind of what music could be. And then out of there, once I learned how to play guitar in grade 10, I guess my influences were my buddies, like friends that I played with and that I jammed with, and then I had great high school music teachers, Rick Rogozinski, who's passed away, and I went to his funeral, which was at the high school, it wasn't a funeral, it was a celebration of life. Yeah. Which speaks to if you're throwing down your celebration of life at the school,
you were a pretty amazing teacher.
Yeah. So you're and everybody was there, and everybody kind of knew each other over my decade span.
Yep. So
it was almost just like a music reunion, for all of his students, which is kind of a neat way to think of it, right?
It is. Yeah.
And then I had Greg Mainprice, who was just a monster jazz drummer still in London, and really good teachers. I had great independent music teachers. This guy named David Molden, who was a classically trained in fiddle guy. I took fiddle from him I took violin all growing up. I studied Suzuki violin in London.
So did David, I wonder if...
Really?
Yeah.
In London?
In London, yeah.
Oh, you don't know who his teachers were, do you?
I don't know. I'd have to ask him.
I had Pat Burrows to start, and then I had Irene Tanberg, who still teaches at Western. And then I went to the dark side and just wanted to play fiddle.
Yeah.
So I found this dude in Elsa Craig, and he and I became good friends. He took me in and taught me how to rebuild violins together.
Which is amazing.
He taught me how to tech and work on guitars, and I spent one summer basically just hanging out in his shop. And it's just the little advice that these guys give you, the hard advice kind of behind the scenes about.
Well, and learning how everything works.
Yeah.
So that you can deal with that on your own.
Right. Yeah. It's about, music, but then it's also about how, a lot of the people boils down to when you're teaching, I think a lot of your inspirations are generally your teachers. I had a great guy named Ryan Fraser he was a saxophone prof at Western, who taught me a lot about the saxophone, but half of the lessons were just life advice.
Yeah.
And those were really valuable lessons. And that's kind of that's kind of shaped my philosophy on teaching, is that, you're there to teach them music, but at the same time, music is a lot about other things
emotions
other than music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've just always been big into I do singer-songwriter stuff now, but a lot of it is still influenced by punk rock and roll, and I like doing that stuff just as much. Some of my songs I write as punk rock and roll songs.
That's perfect.
And then when they're done, I'm like,
you're like, nah, that doesn't
I'm
work.
too old for that.
Yeah.
And let's see what it sounds like with some finger picking, and drop it an octave and be less angry.
You can do it. I've heard you do it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's awesome. So that's one of the biggest things for me is listening. So for me, inspiration is drawn from people like you, Pete, Sandy Brock, people that I'm surrounded with every single day, that basically have taught me to do the things or to teach me to appreciate more genres or more things other than just beer and farming, right? For me, that's most of it. But music for me has always been I've suffered from depression. I've been through a lot. But for me, it always comes back to music. That's what gets you through.
For sure.
Yeah. That's part of what it is.
And that's the new album. Yeah.
So you started with the violin?
Yeah.
Or did you start with the piano?
No, violin. I wasn't a big piano guy.
Were your parents musical? Was it?
Yeah, mom. Well, they both were. My dad was a dynamite singer, sang in church, great voice. Doesn't sing anymore. Mom played piano all growing up. She accompanied me, I think, until I got to the point where he was like, you can go hire somebody to practice this much.
Yeah.
but yeah,
that's good. That's great.
But they were always what I liked about about my parents is they were supportive, but they were teachers too, especially like mom in her own way. I remember like I would play her something and I'd be like really excited about it. She'd be like, I think there was that one part, and I was like, I know there was that part. I'm like, just tell me that I'm good. Yeah. No, but they were super supportive. I mean, they drove me all over the place for like music lessons to gigs. They came to gigs that nobody else was at. Yeah. And I think not everybody's that lucky, right?
No, so, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And she would pick my mom would pick me up at school and drive me to music lessons in London, because there wasn't much going on in Strathroy until a great guy named Alden started like a music shop in Strathroy, which it became the most Strathroy thing ever. It became a music and golf shop when I don't think just
hilarious.
But even that guy's shop was like a hub. Tara McLeod, I don't know if do you know the country band Nice Horse?
It sounds, I know. Yeah, I'm not going to say that I know.
They're a big Canadian band. What's her name? The woman who used to be Jackalope. I think was that what she went by? I forget. Anyway, great Canadian country band, but Tara also played lead guitar in Kitty, the like crazy heavy metal all female band.
Crazy.
And she started, I was starting saxophone, and like almost the same day she was starting guitar in like across, like in the wall divider, like right next to me. Yeah. So I'm there like tooting away on like Pink Panther, and she's like, and she was crazy good. Like, I remember our progressions weren't quite the same. It was like, I was playing some jazz, and all of a sudden she got, I think she basically just, ate, slept, and breathed guitar for. And I was,
you kind of have to, I guess.
Yeah, and I was more of like, I want to play the saxophone, I want to play the violin, I want to play the mandolin. I got grounded for a weekend, and I remember, I don't even know what I did, but I remember telling my dad, I'm like, can we go get a mandolin? He's like, where? I'm like, I got to go to London for it. But like, if I'm going to have to like spend this weekend at home,
I want to learn a new instrument.
And he was like, yeah, okay, let's go. He goes, you're spending your money. So we went and I bought like a cheap mandolin, a Fender
mandolin.
It was
a tough grounding.
From the guitar shop. But then I sat in my room and just played like great big sea songs, like all, all weekend. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I learned how to play the mandolin a bit.
Why not?
Which is kind of neat.
That's hilarious. I mean, not everyone knows how to play the mandolin.
Yeah, nope.
No. So you've kind of, I've been watching your music career kind of as it's gone through, and when Pete came to me and he was like, look, Josh wants to have an album release party, and I was like, yes, we'll do it. Yes. I was really excited about it. So let's talk a little bit about the new album. So I was listening to the song, with the title of the, and I started bawling my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
It's super sad.
Yeah, it's super sad. Like, so I had a cousin that passed away in January. He committed suicide. So like, it was an emotional time. It had just, I think it had just, you'd put it online. Like it had just come out online. That was pretty early in the year.
When did it come out? I don't even, man, this year's such a blur. I don't even remember. No, I think
was it like June?
No, it was, I think it was August when it came out.
But it was before
I might have, it was before the release.
It's a blur for me too.
I might have leaked it, or you might have got, actually, I think I might have sent you like an advance.
Maybe that's what it was.
Pete would have had an advance.
Maybe it was probably Pete.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, that's what you do.
But I was like, I can't listen to the whole song. Yeah.
My dad still hasn't listened to the album. There's a song on it, Cushog Lake, is about his parents.
I do. That's my other favorite one off the album. So the album's called The Quiet I
Never Knew. It's a little tell. Yeah. I'm a folk singer-songwriter, so I can do an album title like that.
But so you had your album release party at the brewery, which was remarkable.
It was
we were just talking about that before the podcast started. It was, like I say to Pete all the time, never again will you say, just the two of us, we'll be fine. When it comes to Josh playing at the brewery, because we were slammed.
Yeah, there were a lot of people.
And I mean,
it was COVID safe.
It was COVID safe. Everyone was 6 feet apart or wearing a mask. The good thing about the brewery is
it's huge.
There's so much space.
Which is why, like when I was talking to Pete about the show, I was like, where do I like do this? Like, there could be nobody, or there could be a ton of people. Because when we booked it, it was still like, it was June, I think. And it was still like, was early. We don't know what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we got to do River Road, because it's just, there's the space and everything's there. Yeah. And then Red built that ginormous stage.
Yeah.
I remember going to look at that. I'm like, oh yeah. Like that's the spot.
So I'm not going to even say David, or Red or whatever you want to call them, built a stage out of a semi truck, I guess, or a trailer. It was, we started doing it last year. And then this year it was like, it was the first band we booked was Ashley McIsaac.
Right.
And Ashley was coming on, the end of July.
Yeah.
And I was like, he can't play on that. Like, we need to make it way better than what it was. So we spent, in my time, it was forever, but it was probably like 2 days. Yeah. Because that's how fast David or Red works.
Putting it together.
But then people started coming and looking at the stage, and they were excited about it, which was really
it's super cool.
Fun. Yeah. But you did an awesome job.
Yeah, it was really neat to get back and to get playing. We were saying as a band, we jammed, and the guys like in the band, we've played together for quite a long time. So we had 2 big rehearsals, which were the first time that most of us, it was the first time we'd all been in a room with each other since the year before. So we made the album during COVID. Like, we were
how was that?
It was interesting. We all knew each other like well enough as musicians to like, it's a thing to get into a room and jam with people and like try to, teach them the songs. It's another thing to do it with a mask over your face, and because you can't see facial expressions or like give when you're playing with other people that don't know your songs. And I like to record a lot of it live, so I won't sing, but we'll have like drums playing, guitar playing, bass. Like I really like my thinking is, and not every Canadian Winter, the final song wasn't done like live off the floor, but most everything else was, kind of minus the vocals, which we went in and did after. Yeah. And for me, it's like, if I'm going to be, away from my kids and my family for a few days, I actually want to hang out in a room with people and play music. Yeah, absolutely. And not be like, and there's nothing wrong with the other form of it either, where you just kind of layer up the tracks and do it that way. And a lot of people have done full albums that way during COVID too. But it was interesting with the all masked up to do, and you're trying to like shove a cue to somebody, and you're trying to, your everybody's eyebrows are all up high in the air. But it was really good then, and we played all the songs. We played those 4 songs and recorded them over a couple days in the summer last year, and then nobody played, right? Nobody was playing, and then we jammed twice, and we got up there to play, and there's like more and more people showing up, and it gets dark. Ivan opened, and by the time we're up, it's dark, and the big lights are on. And you never know how a show is gonna go. Like, you're playing outdoor at a brewery, and a lot of these people hadn't seen, like, who came to the show hadn't seen each other in like a year. So we were saying, Justin and I, that it was like almost like a wedding, and you get a lot of people in the same room, and they're talking back and forth.
Everyone.
And I was thinking when we went up that people weren't going to be quiet, which would have been fine too, right? Because you play shows where it's quiet, and you play shows where it's not. For sure. And it could have gone either way, really. But we got up there to play, and the lights came down, and everything went on, and I was like, oh my God, they're quiet. Yeah. And we've played twice to prepare for
better do a good job
for this to prepare for this gig, and everybody played great. Like, and it was a ton of fun. But you're like, wow, I'm actually like playing a show for like a couple hundred people here who are like actually sitting and listening and like caring about the album. And then like, I prefaced like a couple of songs like, I'm sorry for how sad this is gonna get, but we'll bring it back up. I call it dad rock, and in dad rock you play dads, which are like medium tempo happy songs, and then you play sads, so it's dads and sads that my music is mostly comprised. It's like either like, it's never right here really, but it's like right here in terms of excitement, or like it's really low.
It was good. It was a really good show.
It was a lot of fun to do, and it was a lot of fun to play.
And then I'm in serving beer, which is what we did all night long, which is fine. That's perfect. I appreciated that. But then at the end, David had come into the brewery, and Pete and I were chatting away, and I was like, I hear the Beastie Boys. Where are the Beastie Boys coming from? And I was like listening, and I was like, not on the radio. And I'm like, he's playing the Beastie Boys. And like, I was by myself because Pete and David ran outside. And we did the Beastie Boys. It was like the perfect ending.
My bass player in my band, Bob, he has a band called Safe as Milk, and they played Sabotage years ago at Call the Office, and I saw them play it. And I was like, man,
call the office. Yeah.
I was like, man, I'd love to play that song, but I can never sing it like Bob. Like Bob just nails it when he sings it. I just couldn't do it justice. So I'm not going to do it. And I was teaching online one day. I kind of just had a frustrating day online, and not with the kids or anything. I was just bummed out from being online. And I went for lunch, and behind me in my music room, I just picked a bass off my wall, and I hadn't touched a bass in like 2-3 years maybe. And that's what I kind of got started. I played bass in a ska band when I was a kid, and I picked up the bass, and I was like, I got to learn Sabotage over my work lunch. Yeah. So I learned Sabotage, and I was like, maybe we'll play it one day. And the CD release is coming around, and we've got, the album, which, I think they're probably like the 4 best tunes that I've ever put out. But they are pretty sad. And I remember saying to the band at practice, I'm like, what do you guys think about Sabotage? Like, it's a great song. I'm like, we all know it in the room. And I had my drummer, Matt, who's been with me like since day one. He is like when like a famous artist does like something and you're like, do they not have anybody in their corner to tell them that this was a horrible idea? When like everybody just says, yes, that's a great idea to everybody, right? Just do it, right? Because they're, all afraid of the first. Matt's like the least like that. He'll just tell you like, this is a horrible idea, Josh. And I said, we should play Sabotage. And my wife plays trumpet in my band, Jess. Usually Matt and Jess are on the same page. And usually if I get like a hard no from both of them, it's like a solid, we're not doing it. It's probably like, we better not do it. And I got like, Matt's like, I don't know about that. And Jess was like, no, don't do it. And I looked at him like, it's not a hard no, let's do it. And so we got up there on the stage to do it. And I'm like, we'll only do it if they're feeling it, if they're feeling like partying. And the best part was that everybody was dead silent. So it was a different vibe. I'm like, we're going to do it anyway. And they kind of, Jess kind of gave me the shrug, and it was. It brought some major energy at the very end. It brought everybody back out of the album. So that was It was fun to do. It was a great show, and the album is amazing. Thank you. I really do love it. Honestly, for me, it came right at the right time. Yeah, I was like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need to listen to, and it's not that it is sad. There's a few sad songs on it. But there's purpose behind it. Yeah, for sure. You'd lost a bunch of people. Yeah, like kind of had a rough, like it was over like 6 years. It wasn't like over like a year, right? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't, right? Yeah. Kind of, it was just right in kind of the bumps. And the first song, Riverside Rose, we lost my father-in-law at his visitation. Back when you could still have big visitations. All these characters from Windsor kind of came out of the woodwork. And so I wrote kind of that song based on like, wouldn't it be neat if there was, a song about that stuff? And then Cushog was, my grandparents had a cottage up north. Yeah. So I wrote that song. I had to sing at my grandpa's funeral. No, my grandma's funeral. And they both passed away. I was going to say they were pretty close together within a year or two. And I had to sing it at the funeral, and I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to do a cover song? I'm like, I'll write one for this. And I left it till like the day before, and I was eating lunch in my office at work, and it just like boom. It came to you. It just came to me. And I literally wrote the whole song while I was eating an egg salad sandwich. And church sandwiches. Yeah. So I did that one there and played it, and I was like, this might actually hold up as like not just a song for this, with the full band. And then The Quiet I Never Knew, like that's the sad one, and that was written for Brent, my brother-in-law, who he had, you were pretty close with him as well. We were very, very close. Like he would have loved that event. We were actually, this is a story for the ages, but long before like the brewery boom in Huron County, like this would be almost jumping. How long have you guys been in business for? 4 years. Yeah, I'm going to say this is probably about 12 or 13 years ago. That's about when we started to really appreciate craft beer. Yeah. It was about 12 or 13 years ago. So about that time, like before anybody was really up and running in here, I remember I think Windmill Lake was for sale at the time. Oh, wow. And we drove back in like when nobody was there and kind of had a look around like this would be a cool spot for brewery. We took it back. My father-in-law I'll have to tell Jen you said that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, and my father-in-law was still alive, and Brent and I, my brother-in-law, after having a couple beers, pitched it to him. We're like, because we had no money. What if we start a brewery in Bayfield? and it'll be like Huron
It'll
counties.
never fly.
Yeah, and
It'll never go.
He had a blue light in his hand. And he's like, you guys are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
He's like, that'll never happen. And usually he was right, but he was wrong on that one.
He was really wrong because there's now like 4.
Yeah, right.
Or in the area.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, I'm not going to, I'll tell you afterwards, but our name for our brewery was so good that I'm not going to speak it on camera just in case, but I'll tell you because you already
can use it for a beer.
You could maybe. You could use it for a beer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We won't tell anybody. We'll just all of a sudden there'll be a beer that appears. Just so you know.
But yeah, so we, like the song about Brent, it's the saddest one, but I think it's just, like we were really good buddies and had a ton of ridiculous adventures together. All of his friends. He was like the guy who, if you were hanging out with him, there would be something happen that would be a story for the ages
that you tell your kids.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to tell a story about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then,
I loved it.
Yeah. No, I think it's, I don't know. It's probably it's the toughest song that I have to play, but it's probably my favorite one. It's tough to make it through because it's slow. And it's just me.
Yeah.
But on the album it was super nice. Christine Bougie, who plays guitar with everybody now, but she plays slide for Bahamas. I sent her the track and I was like, brother-in-law and I are huge fans.
Yeah.
We've seen you guys play. I'm a big fan of your playing. Is there any way that I could twist your arm to doing this? And like, she's like, I listen to the songs really good. I'll have something to you within like a week.
Oh, amazing.
And she did like 2 takes and like both of them were like, like super, like she knew exactly what, and that's why we kind of reached out. I was like, if there's anybody who's going to like listen to this.
It's fun that you had that idea in your head of who was going to make it work.
Well, and I wanted to it had to be somebody who like Brent would have been like, that's awesome that you got this person to play on a song about me. Right.
Yeah.
And then Canadian Winter was neat. The last track, it was just Matt and I in the studio. And I recorded my first album, Yellow Tent, with Matt in his parents' basement. I remember there were a couple songs with some swears on it. And Matt's, he's like, can we record like those parts when my parents aren't home? That's how long ago it was. So we were in his parents' basement recording Yellow Tent. It's still like the albums. He did a great for like what it was back. I don't even know what year, like early 2000s with what he had like in his basement.
Yeah.
It sounds incredible. Still like not to like toot my own, but like the songwriting is, but
no, it's good. I did enjoy it.
The acoustics and the sound are like really good. And that's kind of how we started. It was just he and I. And when we did Canadian Winter, I was like, I got this idea for a song that I've been kicking around for a while. I have no clue how we're going to do it because it doesn't sound like a normal Josh Geddis song.
Right.
But I've got this idea in my mind. So I played it on guitar and I'm like, we got to have big drums with it. He's like, well, what does that sound like? So I'm like, sit at the drums, and Matt plays everything. He's in a band called the Dyadics. So they play like big loud stuff. He plays with the Marriotts, the Cedar Sisters from London. He's played with like the Stereo Division, a bunch of London bands. He plays it across all genres. So I was on the talk back to him while he was recording, and as stuff was coming up, I'd be like, now like hit the like go boom, like that, and he was just copying what I was doing. So it was almost like kicking it back like 2 decades to when we first started, and we built this final song
which
together.
Makes it that much more personal.
No, it was really neat, and we did it in like basically like an evening. We just put it together, and we brought a couple people in to play over top of it, but it kind of started like a little bit organically
how it started.
With us in the room. So that it was kind of a neat way to end it as well.
It was awesome. It was beautiful. The vocals in that are amazing. Yeah, I do love that. Yeah absolutely.
So that's the album. But the album. It's neat because it's just like I was looking at. I don't know whether I'm a full album guy. Like I think anybody kind of out of the generation that's before now, and like now it's like about singles.
Yeah,
and
which
getting,
is yeah.
And getting so and there's
at one point it was when we like a long time ago singles were a thing, but now it's back again.
Yeah, and now it's come back, and that is what it is. And some people love it, and some people hate it. I just love still like a full album going through. But for this one, I had some other songs in the go, but they just didn't feel like if I were to put like a song that was a good song, but different. Like this just kind of told a story in chronological order, and it just kind of happened that way.
Didn't fit in.
And I was like, this is it. Like,
so that just means there's a new album.
Yeah,
that you have to work on.
Yeah. Who knows? When the money starts falling from the sky,
You're going to be. You had mentioned a video.
Yeah, we're doing. I had actually right after putting out the album and the release show, Danny Dunlop reached out to me, and if you don't know him, he's done a lot of great music videos from artists from between kind of here and Toronto. He's done a few for Ivan Rivers, and I've always been a pretty big fan. And we've just touched base kind of over the years a few times about maybe doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And he emailed me, and he was like, I think we should do a music video. And I was like, do you have a song? He goes, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. He goes, we're going to do The Quiet I Never Knew.
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, because when you do a music video, you want people to like watch it, like pump it up. I'm like, I don't know if that's the one. And then I had a few other people be like, mention, not related to that, but they, I got a couple messages like, this is this song really tells a story. Yeah. And that's what he was saying. He's like, it tells a story. We can make it cinematic. I can see that. And because I always think, when you think music videos, I always think kind of like Riverside Rose or like Couchag Lake, because they're a little bit more what you think. Yeah. And, if you're putting that out to people, but we'll see what sad.
I think it'll be
we'll
great.
See what a sad dad really looks like in that music.
Start bawling my hand up. Yeah.
But it's good. We're shooting it next week. Actually, part of I won't give away a whole lot of it, but part of the plan involves, getting it done at this time of the year
when it's nice and fall. And,
so
sure.
we'll see. What
I'm
I
excited.
haven't done a music video, like an actual music video, since VHS.
Oh,
so it's
that's
been
a
long time.
Yeah. We're a little past that.
That's
now.
how I got
There's
my
the
last music video that got handed to me as a final product was $100 cash, I think, for it. And it was on VHS. Here's your final product.
You just dated yourself. I like that, because now I'm not the only one in the hot seat.
It was VHS.
Well, I really, really appreciate you coming. This has been amazing.
This has been great.
You can purchase your albums online, can you not?
Yeah, you can buy, if you go to like joshgeddis.com, that's the gateway to everything Josh, I guess. But you can listen to it everywhere. But if you want to actually buy a physical copy and you're from Huron County, what I say to you can buy it on Bandcamp, which is kind of where artists go to make the most money these days, like off of selling your stuff. So you can buy the album, like the physical copy or the CD or any of that there. But if you are from the Huron County area, I just tell people just to message me and save the shipping. Yeah. And you can either e-transfer and pick it up, or I'll drop it off at your
But for those that aren't,
but if you are
from the Huron
in
County area,
Scandinavia right now, and you are like, that Josh Geddis is just, that's
I gotta have his stuff.
I gotta have his sad songs for Sunday morning. You can just go right onto Bandcamp and order it there, and it'll get shipped out within 3 days, and you can cry on top of your record player.
It's amazing. It's what everyone wants.
Exactly.
And on that note, thanks so much.
Well, thanks, Nikki.
Hopefully we'll talk to you soon, guys. We'll be back at this now that I'm out of the summer routine, and we can start doing these more and more and more. Look forward to the next guest, who I won't say who it is because I don't know yet. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.